Hey, good morning and welcome to Courageous Church. This is an exciting day. This is our first day of being an online digital church, and we're so grateful and so excited that you've chosen to spend some of your Sunday, some of your time with us here this morning. And I wanted to say welcome. We're so glad you're here. If you've got young kids and you didn't see already, we do on Sunday mornings have materials for the kids at 9:15 that you should be able to find on our Facebook and Instagram pages. And so you can show that to your kids if you haven't already. It's a great way for them to grow alongside us as we're all following Jesus together. I would also encourage you to check out this Wednesday some materials that we're going to be putting up to help us learn how to worship together as a church. It's called Worship Foundations. I'll be leading those and I'll be in those videos, so I'm really excited personally for those, and I would encourage you to, again, check on our social media for those videos as well. Tomorrow we're going to be posting some information, some videos about living life with Jesus, just some things that'll help you take steps day after day, week after week on how to follow Jesus alongside your brothers and sisters in Christ and everyone around you. So be on the lookout for those. It's bold truth in 60 seconds, so it'll be fantastic. Lastly, I want to encourage you, one of the huge ways that you can walk alongside us in being courageous is to join an online digital group, a small group, and those are so important. You can go to wearecourageous.church/groups to see the listing of our different groups that we offer right now. And that list is only going to get bigger as time goes on. So I'm really excited for those. That's a great way that we're going to learn to walk in community together. So I'm so excited that this is our first Sunday. I'm so glad that you're here with us. Let's hear from our lead pastor, Hannah, and she's going to teach us what it means to live boldly and to question what we believe as Christians in a good way. And I encourage you to join us now.
If what the Bible claimed was really true, would you want to know? We all know what it is to ask a hard question in life. Some of you listening to this right now have had to ask the question, will you marry me? And have that couple second pause where you're waiting for a response and you know the answer to this question is going to change the trajectory of your life. Right? That's the kind of hard questions that we're talking about in this series as Courageous Church. And the first one we're doing is the Bible true? This is such a hard and courageous question to ask because if it is true, then we're confronted with more hard questions, all of which have the potential to drastically alter the purpose and meaning and plan for our entire lives. If the Bible's true, what does that mean about God, about me, about the purpose of my life, or about my past? These are life-changing questions. So, is the Bible true? Will you be courageous enough today to truly seek out the answer? Because I believe there's so much evidence that the Bible is true that the real issue becomes not, is the Bible true? Is it accurate? As much as it becomes, am I willing to let go of my need to control my life? Am I willing to acknowledge the supernatural? Am I willing to confront my past or my sin or my hurt? And am I willing to confront the reality of a real personal God who created me, who wants to have a relationship with me? If the Bible is true, what does that mean for my life? So maybe you're thinking, okay, I hear you. I see why this is a big question. I don't know if I'm ready for those questions. On the other hand, you may be hearing me ask these sorts of questions and you may be thinking, if I'm going to be honest, I've been asking those questions deep inside my heart for a long time. But if I'm going to ask such an important question as that, I want to make sure that I'm not believing something blindly. Can the Bible be trusted? How can we know that what Christians believe is actually valid and trustworthy? Isn't the Bible really old? It's been translated a bunch of times, right? Is it still relevant today? Is it accurate? Can you actually know that all those stories that happened thousands of years ago actually happened? in this brief time I have with you today, I hope to share with you a few facts that I believe will help you to see how trustworthy the Bible is, even by secular, historical, and literary standards. So for our time today, because we have a limited time, let's just look at the New Testament of the Bible. This is the portion of the Bible that covers the life of Jesus, the start of the church as we know it today, and as well as it outlines what Christians believe. It was written in ancient Greek over 2,000 years ago and has been translated into English so that we can read it today. Now, archaeological and literary evidence show us, this is really interesting here, so follow me, that the manuscripts we have, the ancient copies of this that were written down that the archaeologists have discovered, shows that the original documents were written within 100 years of the events that they were written to record. Now, this is really significant because there are many, many, many other historical events in history that are undisputedly accurate. We consider this is a historical event that happened, and the written records we have of those events were written with a far greater gap between them from the time the event was actually written down from the time it happened. In addition to this, of those written manuscripts that archaeologists have uncovered, we have so many of them. We have around 20,000 texts of ancient versions of the New Testament written in various languages that all agree with each other about what events happened, and over 65,000 of them total. That's 20,000 that are those very ancient versions and 65,000 total, and there's more being discovered all the time. In order to help us understand this, to kind of wrap our minds around the significance of this, I came across a certain researcher's writings he gave just this really helpful picture. So if you think of the average ancient classical writer that we would read about, that would be taught about in our schools and our colleges as we study philosophy and these sorts of things, if you were to compile the average classical writer's writings and take whatever they were written on and type them up in a computer and print them out onto your regular 8.5 by 11 sheets and make a stack of all of their writings, you'd get about 4 feet high worth of writings. Now that's a lot of all, and that's the manuscript evidence we have of their writings. And we would look at those writings and say, this is a ton of evidence. Now, let me give you a little perspective on what we've found of the New Testament. If you think of the One World Trade Center in New York City, it is 1,792 feet tall. Now, if you were to take just the manuscript evidence that we have from just the New Testament portion of the Bible, which is the shorter part of the Bible. But if you take just the evidence we have from the New Testament, that same stack of papers typed up on regular sheets of paper, that same stack of papers would stretch past the One World Trade Center and would reach one mile high. Listen to this. This means that if you reject the reliability of the Bible, you logically must consider all other works of antiquity to be unreliable. Any doubts you have about the historical accuracy of the New Testament must be multiplied exponentially for the average classical author. Now, I hear you might be saying, but aren't there inconsistencies between these manuscripts? Yeah, that's a ton of them, but do they even agree with each other? Are there problems in them? There's an extremely small percentage that if you type those up could fit just on a couple of those sheets that stretch a mile high. But yes, they are there, but let me tell you about those. One, it's an extremely small percentage, the vast majority of which can be explained just by further study and understanding of the Bible itself, as well as studies of ancient culture, linguistics, or archaeology. And of those remaining pieces that that remain that we're like, yeah, I don't know why that manuscript disagrees. Not one of those pieces holds up a fundamental Christian belief. Anything that's significant to this is what the Bible teaches, this is what Christian believes, not one of those have those errors. It comes down to, like, if you really want to challenge those, and it's far less of a percentage than many of the other ancient writings we find. But if you really want to look at those, it's like a number here and a number here. Like it does not change the meaning one bit of the message of the Bible. In addition to this, if we need more evidence, in addition to this, most of the writings in the Bible are considered eyewitness accounts, right? They're written firsthand by the author. They record during the lifetime of eyewitnesses, record eyewitnesses and their names or their firsthand written accounts. And of the writings of the New Testament, there are Christian and non-Christian historians and philosophers who quote the New Testament accurately during their lifetimes in this same time period. There's over 36,000 quotations that we have referencing the New Testament and the events that happened during the New Testament, written from completely different writers, and they all agree on what happened and what the Bible says. So if we apply standard, just literary and historical standards to the New Testament of the Bible, then we have every reason to believe that the historical writings of the Bible are accurate. Now, I know that's a lot of information, but it's so important. So let's take it a step further beyond, like, okay, we've analyzed the text. Sure, we have a lot of evidence. Let's look at the most important event in the Bible for the Christian faith and see if there's sufficient evidence to believe that that really happened. You know, in the New Testament, there was a writer named Paul, who was one of the key leaders of the church, one of the biggest contributors of New Testament writing. And he actually went so far to say that if this event in the New Testament didn't really happen, then the Christian faith is worthless. It's inaccurate. It's just can be thrown out. This event is the resurrection of Jesus. In the 1 Corinthians 15:14, Paul wrote, "If Christ has not been raised, then all our preaching is useless and your faith is useless." Me standing here talking to you right now is useless if Jesus has not been raised. Now, we know Jesus lived and we know Jesus died. This is well documented. This isn't a disputed fact. There's enough historians, eyewitness accounts, both from the Bible and from external sources. Like, we know Jesus walked this earth as a man, and we know that he died. So the question is, did he come back to life? And this is important because we're asking that question, right? The hard questions, courageous questions. If the Bible is true, would you really want to know? Because if you're brave enough to answer that question, you have to start addressing those questions of, okay, then Jesus is God. Then what does it mean for my life? Remember, that's why this is so significant to understand. So let me show you some really interesting supporting evidence for this being a real event. And keep in mind, I only have the time today to share with you a small sliver of the information that shows us that the Bible is true and that Jesus was who he says he was. First of all, and this is interesting, women were the first ones that saw Jesus alive again after he died. They were the first ones trusted with the message and told, go tell people that Jesus is alive. Now, the reason that this is significant is because in this society, in this day, women's voice didn't matter. It didn't hold weight. So if someone had been trying to make up a story, like, let's make up a story and say that he's alive again, they wouldn't have had women be the first eyewitnesses, the first carriers of that message. It wouldn't have made sense in that time and culture because no one would have cared about the word of a woman. It's not logical. But God cares about women and values them. And he gave them the message to carry first. That's not something they would have made up. In addition, there's so many eyewitnesses to the appearance of Jesus. And many of these eyewitnesses either write in-person eyewitness accounts or are recorded by name during their lifetimes. It would be like if I was a witness on trial, right? And I stood in the courtroom and said, yes, this is what I saw happen. But in addition, if you need more evidence, here's the names of these 75 other people who were with me that also saw it happen. And it would be really easy for the prosecution or the judge or whoever to go and ask those other 75 people, here's their names and phone numbers, and here's how, it'd be really easy for him to go ask and verify the story. That's essentially what people were doing when they wrote the New Testament. They said, I saw this happen, and here's all these other people that saw this happen. So during the time it was written, if they would have written anything inaccurate, they would have gotten called out from all sides and the movement would have been dead. In addition, if you look at the birth of the church in Acts, there's this moment in the book of Acts where the Spirit of God fills his people, his followers, in a miraculous way. And these people who had been timid before fled out into the streets and start preaching the gospel of Jesus, start preaching that Jesus is alive. And on that day, that's when the church as we know it today was born. There's thousands of people that decide to follow Jesus. And this happened in Jerusalem, where people from all these different areas and languages were gathered together during this time. These same people had seen Jesus crucified. These same people had called for his death not long before. And now, in what world would it make sense that these same people, not long later, how would it make sense that thousands of them all decide to give their lives to the cause of following Jesus? Many of them lost homes and families and completely, their lives are turned upside down, and yet they joyfully follow Jesus. That doesn't make sense unless something major really happened. You see, if Jesus' followers, the disciples, if they were making up a story, they wouldn't have given their whole lives for that story and gone through what they went through. You have to understand, many of them were beaten and killed, with joy. Maybe it would make sense that they would make up a story like this if they gained all this wealth and prestige and honor, but the opposite happened. When they said Jesus is alive, it put them as an enemy of the state and an enemy of the church at the time, of the Jewish church. So they were persecuted. They gave up everything. You think of a conspiracy today, think of Watergate, right? If a group of people tries to conspire together, when the heat gets turned up on that group of people, someone cracks, right? Someone is willing to turn in their friends in order to avoid punishment, or somewhere along the way, someone gets their story mixed up and their stories start to contradict. This never happened with Jesus' disciples. They were resolved for their whole lives to follow Jesus, to give their lives to this cause. And it exploded and became the biggest movement this world has ever seen. Psychologically, socially, none of that makes sense unless Jesus really lived, unless those people actually saw him alive. Nothing can account for the life change that happened, that takes someone from being a fearful fisherman to a bold preacher and someone who's willing to give their lives for a cause. Something had to happen. If any other historical event in history had this much evidence, this many eyewitness accounts, this much cultural evidence, there would be no reason to question its accuracy. And I've only had the time with you today to share a sliver of the evidence. So if what the Bible claimed was really true, would you want to know? Are you courageous enough to really look at the evidence? Because if you look honestly, I believe the answer you'll find is a resounding yes. But there are a lot of questions that you have to face now if you're courageous enough to say that yes. Because the deeper issue isn't, is the Bible accurate and can I trust it? the answer's clear. That answer's clear. If we're willing to let go of our fear, our pride, our biases, and look honestly. The Bible is true. And if we can see that truth, then that means there is a God. That means that he loves you. It means that you need him. And the fulfillment you're looking for in life can't be found apart from him. So if you will be courageous enough to continue asking hard questions and truly seeking out answers, I have 3 ways you can respond boldly today. One is just taking the step to reach out for a conversation. Send us a message. We believe so much in the resurrection of Jesus and in the Bible, in the life of Jesus and what he teaches, that we have given our lives. Here at Courageous Church, we have given our lives to follow Jesus. And our staff, it's our favorite thing in the world to have conversations with people about Jesus. So if you have any questions at all, if there's some things you need to talk through that you're wrestling through in your spirit, reach out for a conversation. And we'd be happy to talk with you. The next thing you can do if you're thinking, man, I'd really like to learn more about God, but I don't feel like this is something I can walk towards on my own. I don't have other people in my life I can walk with, and I have a lot of learning to do and a lot of questions I need answers to. I would encourage you to join a small group. We have groups of people meeting digitally right now that are beginning to walk life together, to build real relationships, to have authentic conversations about hard questions. If you want to be a part of a community, walking life together, wrestling through hard things together, and build deep, lasting friendships, I encourage you to follow the link we've posted with this video and get more information about a small group and how you can join. Lastly, I encourage you to pray. Whether you pray all the time, whether you've never prayed before, whether you've only prayed in a religious setting and not in a personal way between you and God before, I encourage you to pray, to say, God, if you're real, I want to know. Like, I'm willing to put my heart out there, like, God, if you're real, show me. And if you're ready to pray that, if you're praying that here today, send us a message. We want to talk with you. We want to pray for you. And if you're part of the Courageous Church family, this is also the time for you to worship through giving. To say, God, all I am is yours, and everything I have you've blessed me with, and so I want to give a portion of that back to you, just out of showing that everything's yours. Everything I have is yours, and my life is yours, and I want to worship you. This is your opportunity to follow the link. Go to wearecourageous.church and give.
I initially put it in there.
And if you want more information about Courageous Church or want to get involved with this new exciting digital church that's launching, send us a message. Courageous Church, love boldly this week. Speak truth boldly. Live boldly like Jesus. We thank God for every single one of you.
We can check that out later. Okay. Huh? What, am I live now? Okay. 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 Oh. I'm sorry. Thanks for engaging Bold Truth with us today. You know, we believe that a huge part of engaging that bold truth effectively is by doing it together, in community. I can't stress this enough. Now more than ever, we need to do this together. So join a group, learn and grow together in community, and engage with us online. And above all, remember, you're not alone. Thanks for being courageous with us today. We look forward to continuing the journey of faith forward together, and now I would just leave you with this. Go